Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for March 18th. I'm your host, Aaron Armstrong, and with me today is Matt. How you doing, Matt?
Doing good. Happy to be back. It feels pretty fitting that my first update of the season is after a pretty crazy day of Anthony in the Big Brother Canada house after all the press that my preseason rankings of Anthony got
Yeah,
with
you had so long to brag about your choice, and now I don't know if you
I,
should.
I feel like if this was like a day earlier, I would have been feeling a lot better about coming on here and doing a little bit of bragging. But yesterday had me a little worried. So
Hmm.
lots to talk about.
Yes, we are here to update you on everything that happened yesterday on the Big Brother Canada 7 live feeds. It was day 16 in the house, and really not a whole lot of new things going on beyond Anthony being a little weird. Just the plan is still in place. Sam has the veto, and Sam is going to talk with Kiki about using the veto, and it's a lot of talk and not a lot of movement, but we'll get into it here.
Yeah, a lot of these players like to go really heavy on like the circular, like let's just repeat the same thing over and over again. And this day was filled with a lot of that. So
Yeah.
agreed.
So Dane talks with Kiki and SD. This is really the crux of the day, is that Dane is kind of worried that he's going to be backdoored himself because, I'm Dane and I'm going to get targeted by Sam because Sam hates me and I hate Sam, even though she doesn't really care that much. And so he's talking to Kiki and SD. He kind of lets them know he thinks there's a backdoor plan in place, and that they might try to offer us a deal, or you a deal or whatever, but whatever it is, we'll let them save you, Kiki, and then next week we're gonna turn around and we're gonna get Sam out. That's what we're gonna do. We need to get Sam out. No matter what we say to them, we're getting Sam out. She needs to go because I'm Dane.
I didn't see this trio forming last week. It didn't seem like this was anything to look out for, but obviously, like the past few days this week, you can see that Dane with the twins together are going to be a trio that seem pretty inseparable going forward. That's going to be something pretty much as equally as strong as the Chelsea, Adam, and Dane trio. Chelsea, Adam, and Sam trio. So something to watch out for.
Yeah, when the feeds came on, I was noticing that Dane and SD seemed a little bit flirty, but then over the course of his HOH reign, it was just SD and Kiki just kind of went off and did their own thing. Honestly, Kiki being nominated is probably the best thing that ever happened to their games because it has forced them back into the house, into socializing, and they do now have Dane protecting them, which is huge because he is doing a lot of work for them with the pretty boys and the rest of the house, which we will get into very soon. SD talks with Adam, and it's again the whole day is the Adam, Sam, Chelsea group circling around the Dane, SD, Kiki group, where Sam is planning on using the veto on Kiki. Kiki wants the veto used on her. And so they're just going to circle around this topic of, can we make a deal? Are we going to use the veto? Can we promise each other safety? Is it going to be true? And so they have lots of conversations about this throughout the whole day. Adam talks with SD about it. SD's like, yeah, it would be great if we worked together. Wouldn't it be so cool if we were all hanging out in jury? That would be great, wouldn't it? And Adam's like, yeah, I want us to be safe until the double eviction. And that's going to be the main sticking point here, is that they're going to make a deal until the double eviction. They'll keep each other safe.
Right. And my biggest thing with this six, it's such a weird situation between them because Adam working with the twins is not ever, it doesn't ever make sense. They have no connection between them. When Adam goes to talk to the twins are like, what is with this guy? Why is he so weird? He can't even have a conversation. And then Dane, on the other hand, doesn't talk to Chelsea and Sam at all. I mean, he'll check in with them here or there kind of because he has to, but there's it's the same lack of a connection that Adam has with the twins that Dane has with Chelsea and Sam. It's very weird why these two guys are just not mixing well with the two women on the other side. So the fact that these six are trying to in some way come together and make a group to work together, but there's still connections that are just awkward. It's very weird.
Yeah, and I think that's why they keep circling around each other, is that this is a group of people that should not be working together, and the only reason they are is because of the Pretty Boys and the placement of Adam in one group and Dane in another. And the thing is that you'd think that, okay, these Pretty Boys, they're working together, so they're trying to bring their two groups together even though their groups don't get along. No, it's actually worse than that. It's that the Pretty Boys are trying to bring these two groups together, but actually also targeting each other's groups, because Dane is targeting Sam, and Sam and Chelsea are kind of targeting Kiki and Esty, and it's just a mess of like people that should not be working together, and it's so combustible. It's definitely not going to last.
Yeah, and the fun part about it is the fact that like at the core of this is the Pretty Boys, obviously, that brings all of this together. So the two Pretty Boys that are not involved in this six's messiness, you have Mark, who is not trusted by either group, and then you have Anthony, who is just completely like mixing everything up between both groups. And you know, I'm sure we'll get into more of Anthony's chaotic day that he had, but it's just such a mess. And you know, this seems like it might be an easy week, I guess, you know, in quotation marks, because they're going to get Mama K out, and you know, but the next week, like, it's going to, whoever comes to power, it's going to be something interesting, because it seems like there's still shots that want to be made from one side of this group to the other, even in the middle. People want to take Mark out, and you know, it's going to be interesting to see what happens next week.
Yeah, and I will say, you know, at the start of the week, I thought maybe Chelsea's plan should be target Damien. I still feel like that wouldn't be a terrible option for her. You know, yesterday and the day before, I was kind of like, well, Kaylin's not a bad option either. I'm really starting to think that Kaylin actually probably is the worst option of these three, and that maybe Kiki should be Chelsea's target at this point, because with Dane influencing Kiki and Esty the way that he is, like, that trio is definitely the biggest threat to the Sam Chelsea grouping, because Dane will keep Adam safe of those three, and which means Sam is in trouble, and if Sam wins the veto or whatever, Chelsea is definitely in trouble. And so I really feel like this move to take out Kaylin, her power is just so diminished at this point. I'm really starting to think it's maybe a little bit of a mistake.
See, the way that I've been viewing this week is that I feel like it makes sense to target Kaylin. I feel like Chelsea and Kaylin have not been on the same page once this entire game. They've both talked about it. Every conversation that they've had has been kind of awkward, and they both acknowledge how it feels awkward after they're done talking to each other. They talk to other people. They're like, yeah, I can tell we're not on the same page here. So I get why it makes sense for Chelsea to take her out. I think the nominations are pretty much where I would have to say Chelsea could have done a little bit better. Maybe keeping Kira off the block and not touching the twins yet. Maybe, like, I know she didn't want to go after Eddie or put Eddie on the block because they have a relationship, but Damien and either put Kaylin up directly and hope that she doesn't win the veto, or just take the shot putting up Eddie and hoping that he doesn't get too upset about it. Because like you said, putting the twins in this kind of danger, firing them up in this way where they're like, well, we're going to take the shot back even if we're making a deal now, it was a risk, and it might backfire, if the twins come into power soon.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you are gonna take the shot at Kaylin, just put Eddie up next to her at this point. Eddie, I don't have many notes for him during the day because he has just been. I mean, Eddie and Kaylin have been Esty and Kikiing it all down the week, as they have been isolating themselves, talking to each other only. I haven't seen Eddie talk with anyone, and this is not good for Eddie, because Eddie's game right now, as we've talked about, he doesn't have a lot of influence. It relies entirely on the goodwill of the rest of the house based on the relationship that he has with them, and those relationships are deteriorating. He is not maintaining them in any way, and he is starting to come up more and more as a potential target moving forward. I don't like it. I want Eddie to move I think that hopefully, in the same way that when Kiki was nominated, it really helped Esty and Kiki's game, hopefully when Kaylin goes up on the block today, we will see Eddie get more involved with the rest of the house again and see him try and maybe work some magic. But even then, like I said, I think if you are going to target Kaylin, yes, put Eddie up on the block next to him. But really, at this point, I just feel like Kaylin is just much less of a threat than this trio. And like Kaylin is going around still completely oblivious to the fact that she's going on the block. She's talking about targeting people like Corey, targeting people like totally irrelevant people, and it's just like I feel like she is just so much less of a threat to Chelsea and Sam and their games than Kiki and Esty ever will be. So I do feel like this is a bit of a mistake, but also at the same time, this may all be completely irrelevant by whenever they do the twist thing.
Yeah, and also just one of the other main points that I've felt why Kaylin is a good person to go home this week is just because of the fact that you don't want to risk the chance that Kaylin gets to jury, because Kaylin will be a major influence in that jury house if she was there.
I would be a great juror. I would vote for the best player. Like, I would not vote for the Paris of the season. I would definitely vote for the best player.
I mean, we saw what she was able to do with the 2 hours before the eviction. She was able to rally those troops together and say, listen, we have 5 here. Let's go. Let's vote how we want to vote. So I would just not want her in jury, especially as somebody who just doesn't vibe with me. So that's that. Yeah.
Yeah. And talking about how Paris didn't deserve to win does not help your case for being a good juror.
Yes.
All right. So anyway, Chelsea and Sam are going to talk a little bit more about Kira. This whole thing is still going on where Kira is kind of annoying to Chelsea and less so to Sam, but still a bit to Sam. And they talk about Kira and how they wouldn't mind if they were targeted, and Kira went home and whatever like that. They feel fine about like leaving Kira on the roadside somewhere and then driving off and being like, whoops, we forgot.
Forgot to put you in the car. We told you we were leaving at 10, not whatever time you thought it was.
Yeah.
Kira's going to be collateral damage whenever the time comes. They've acknowledged that we can keep Kira in as a vote as long as we need to, but if people are going to start targeting Kira eventually, that's okay. Like we'll be okay without Kira.
Yeah. Adam is going to talk with Dane, and he is going to let Dane know about the conversation he had with Sam and Chelsea, and how they were saying, hey, Dane's going to come after you soon. You got to watch out for Dane. He was like, what dummies they are, right? And Dane's like, they're backdooring me, aren't they? And he's like, no, you're good. Don't worry about it. He's like, okay, that's fine. I'm definitely not trying to get Sam out. That's definitely not happening. And so Dane is going to pitch to Adam and lie to Adam, importantly, that he says, hey, Kiki and Esty, their targets are Damien and Eddie next week. They are not going after Chelsea and Sam. And this is very important. This is Dane vouching for Kiki and Esty, which is going to make a huge difference both with Adam and with Chelsea, because Kiki, as we'll talk about later on, does not do a super great job herself. So Dane backing them up makes a big difference here. And Adam is completely bought into this, because why would a fellow pretty boy lie to me? So Dane really doing a lot of work to protect Kiki and Esty here. For as much as he talks about how Adam is too close with Sam and that his feelings are going to get in the way, I think the real pretty boy that's going to fall because of some maybe feelings for a girl, I think it's going to be Dane for Esty. That's my call right now.
Yeah, the past few days, the feeds come up. The first thing you see is Dane crawling into bed with Esty, and they're cuddling for a little bit before Big Brother tells them to wake up. So there's definitely something going on there, and I can agree with that. Chelsea and Sam are really not lucking out with their choice in an alliance partner. The fact that Adam is in their corner, and Adam is probably the dumbest player in the house, is really not beneficial to their games, because he's obviously all in on the pretty boys, but he's just so bad at Big Brother in general, like every aspect of it, the social, the strategy, the everything. He is not good. And it's funny because I've been putting out on Twitter a couple of player rankings charts just every few days and I've had Adam in the middle, because I feel like his spot in the house is just somewhere in the middle. He's got some allies protecting him, but the fact that he's so bad at this game always makes me want to bring him down as far as possible. So yeah, he trusts everything that Dane says. He doesn't even think for a second Dane could be lying to him. And then when Chelsea and Sam are saying, we don't feel good about Dane, he's like, oh no, don't worry. Dane's fine. Dane's good. I think we're fine with Dane. It's like, no, he's not. And they're right.
Yeah, they actually are. Like, he thinks, ha, I know secretly that we have the pretty boys. I know that I can trust Dane. They're so silly for not thinking that I can trust them. And they're thinking, oh, Adam, he's so naive for thinking that he can trust Dane. And everybody's wrong. But they are right unintentionally, because he does have the pretty boys with Dane, but at the same time, he can't trust Dane. And, you know, again, the thing about Dane's obsession with Sam is that if Adam, think about it, because Dane talked to Adam a lot about, like, we need to get rid of Sam, it needs to happen. If anyone went to Dane and said, we need to get rid of Esty, you're too close to her, Dane would freak out. I guarantee it. He would not. He would be so mad.
And I don't think that Dane's that great of a player either, but I would have to say he has a little bit more of like self-awareness or just awareness of what's going on in the house than Adam probably ever could have this season.
I think Dane is better socially. I think Adam is better strategically, and I think they're both kind of bad.
Yes.
So we let's see. So then Adam is going to talk about, okay, so with this in mind, if you're vouching for Kiki and Esty that they're not coming for us, then what I would love is for the final 9 to be the pretty boys, all 4 pretty boys, plus Sam and Chelsea, plus Kiki and Esty, and then and Damien. Damien would be the 9th. I don't know why he's cutting it off at final 9, but that would be my final 9.
It was a 7-person jury last season, so I guess maybe they're talking about like everybody who would make it to jury, and they want to keep Damien around because Damien would go after all the girls, is what I think they said. So
Dane agrees. He likes Damien. He would like Damien to be in the final 9 as well.
Yeah, they have that the hockey. I think they talked yesterday about how they were at like the same hockey camp years and years ago. So I don't know. There's something to that bond there, which who knows if it'll mean anything in the long run.
Yes, and again, this is like I've talked about Eddie and Damien, how they're both in kind of similar situations where they don't have a lot of influence, but they're getting by because people like them and they have good relationships. Damien is maintaining those relationships. People do still like him. They do still want him to get further in the game. And you know, people talk about using him as a pawn. People sometimes talk about him as a kind of target, but he's always behind somebody else. And most people are like, we like him. We want to bring him further somewhere. And they even feel bad for him for using him as a pawn. So I still like where Damien's at. It's just he needs to, at some point, have something that allows him to move out of this sort of spot of no influence to being a player in the game.
Yeah, and Anthony made a really good point yesterday, which just an observation that I hadn't really thought of. The fact that, I mean, this happens all the time with people who go on the block time and time again. Somebody like Damien, this is his second time on the block, and he's fully or pretty confident this week in the way that he said that people have been making eye contact with him. He said, you know, Chelsea keeps reassuring him that you are not going home this week. He's just growing more confident each week. He knows that if he's on the block, there's a chance he'll survive. Or, you know, it's a lot different to be on the block freaking out that you might go home. And this is, you know, compared to Damien, who's on the block for the second time now, and he's seen that he can make it through. So if this keeps happening, if he keeps going on the block, he's going to just be so much stronger just by having the mental strength to know that he's going to be okay.
Yes. So we got Dane, Chelsea, Sam, and Adam. Dane is going to pitch to the same thing he just pitched to Adam, to Chelsea and Sam as well. Hey, Kiki and Esty are not going after you guys. They're going after Damien and Eddie. Those are the people they really want out, which they should not be believing this. Esty and Kiki love Damien, and they have made no qualms about showing that. So they should not believe this at all. But Adam believes him, and Adam says, hey, Dane is trustworthy. And Chelsea and Sam, after what Dane pitches to them, they're like, you know, we still don't necessarily agree with you, but we do agree there are bigger targets in the house right now, like Mark. Mark is a bigger target. Mark is not trustworthy. And Adam's like, what? No, Mark is trustworthy. Don't go after Mark. And the whole process starts over again.
I don't know what it is about Mark. I mean, well, no, I get what it is. I think Chelsea was the one, I think, the other day who kind of compared Mark to a Joel, like Big Brother Canada 4 Joel. And I can see it. It's just kind of like somebody that you just don't feel good with in your conversations with, because it just kind of feels awkward. So you don't feel confident as this is somebody that I can put my full trust in going forward into the next part, you know, the rest of the game. So everybody just kind of feels that way. And everyone's like, well, he has to go eventually. We don't really trust him. But I still feel like Mark is going to go almost maybe as far as somebody like Joel did, all the way down to the end, because he's not ever going to be your biggest target. You're not going to be scared of Mark the most out of everybody in the house, even if you don't feel like you can 100% have faith in him.
Are you saying that his master plan actually is working and that we shouldn't make fun of his speech later on?
I would not call it a master plan, no.
Because that's exactly how he described his plan. I'm just saying.
Yes, no, I would not, and I do not think it can. I didn't have confidence in him in the preseason, and I still don't think that it will result in a win. But I think for longevity, he might be okay.
All right. Well, so yeah, Adam is gonna have this whole conversation with Chelsea and Sam again about Mark and how, oh no, we can trust Mark, he's totally fine. And this one, like this, right after right after the Dane one, where they were like, Dane, you can't trust Dane. He's like, no, I can't trust Dane. And he's like, no, I can't trust Mark. And this one's gonna sketch them out, I think, a little more than the first one, but still not quite enough to let them know that something is amiss yet. So Adam is then going to go talk with Kiki, Sam is going to talk with Kiki, and Adam is going to be there. And Sam, again, they're going to circle around the idea of Sam maybe using the veto, maybe making a deal. Sam says, hey, I would want your word. If I use the veto, which I'm not saying I will yet, but if I use the veto, I would want your word that you won't come after me, that you won't come after us. And Kiki's like, yeah, you got my word. We're good.
Yeah, they were trying to figure out a way to make it so that they get promised protection from Kiki for like the trio. They want Chelsea, Sam, and Adam to all be protected, but they don't want to outright say, we want you to protect the three of us and make it known that the three of them are working together. So, and Sam, I would say, probably isn't the best one to be doing the talking here. I feel like Chelsea's probably the one you want to put in front. Not that Sam is like terrible, but like Chelsea's probably the best of the three to find a way to make this deal happen. But Sam's not really trying to reveal her cards just yet, even though it's kind of pretty obvious that she's going to take Kira down.
Well, Sam is their figurehead. Sam is their like, just go out and do all the work for us, Sam, and then when people target us, they'll target you.
Yeah.
And
Chelsea can always just come in and clean it up later, I guess. So
I think that Chelsea and Sam feel like that's Adam for them. They don't realize that it's actually Sam.
Yeah, that's fair.
Chelsea is going to talk with Kira, and this is basically when they confirm what I was just saying about Adam and Mark, where they were like, why does Adam trust Mark? It's so sketchy. I don't understand. Mm-hmm. Mark is so sketchy. I don't know why Adam would trust him. That doesn't make any sense. But again, they kind of ended there.
Hashtag pretty boys.
They're too pretty. Mark is going to have a very embarrassing spiel to the cameras about his master plan and how it's going so well, and everyone sees him as weak. And to be fair to Mark, I guess again, a lot of it is what Matt just described in terms of like, he wants people to see him as weak. He doesn't want them to see him as untrustworthy as they do, but he does want to be somebody that is not like on the forefront of people's minds as a target. I would say he is failing myself. I think that he is far too much of a target than he should be, and I think he's a juicier target than than other like quote unquote targets like Eddie or Kira or whoever else, because I think that people do see him as dangerous because of all his percentage talk and how good he is at memory and stuff, that they're worried about him in the end game competitions. So I do think that Mark needs to be worried in that regard. Like, he's not doing a whole lot to take that target off of himself. However, he does have the pretty boys backing him up and trying to create targets ahead of him. And I think if he survives, it will be largely due to the work of people like Anthony, working in his best interests.
Yeah, Anthony went to bat for him pretty big time yesterday when he was talking to Adam, and there's people that want to protect him, and that's why I was saying I feel like he will have longevity just because he has the pretty boys around him. And I just feel like if Mark ends up on the block next to a Damien, next to an Eddie, they're going to be, at least the pretty boys obviously will all be in Mark's corner, and then even the Chelsea and Sams are going to eventually be like, well, we don't feel great about Mark, but we know that the other two guys are going to be on on the twin side, so we can't let them stay here and be a number for them. Well, Mark potentially could be a number for us. So I don't know. I'm not as worried as maybe you might be or as other people might be, but I agree that I don't think that Mark has an idea of how in danger he could be. He thinks just like Kira. I don't think that either of them understand how in danger they potentially could be in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that without the Pretty Boys, Mark is like the second most likely target next week. With the Pretty Boys backing him up, he'll probably be fine. It'll probably be somebody like Sam or I don't know, Eddie.
Yeah, Eddie and Damien.
Yeah, it'll probably be Eddie. So you know.
I want more. I need more from Eddie. I've been down on Kira ever since they were on the block. That I didn't feel like they were making great connections with people. They were only really talking to Chelsea, most of the time. And I feel like Eddie this week has spent all of his time with Kaylin, with the twins, I guess. And I feel like he's not really reaching out to the Pretty Boys or to Chelsea, Sam as much. I mean, he has a connection with Chelsea, but it's not enough because people still come to Chelsea and they're like, well, Eddie's got to go sooner or later. He's a big target. And Chelsea's just like, yeah, I agree. Cause she's trying to protect him, but there's not much she can do if he's not helping himself.
Yeah. If I had to guess, I think that Eddie, he voted the way that he did. He was hoping it would go his way. It didn't. And then he was caught in some uncomfortable situations where he had to explain himself. And I think that, like, feeling uncomfortable in that way kind of like shook him a little bit, and he's having trouble being the same guy that he was within those relationships where he knows that he kind of got caught, and it's a harder road for him. And I think he's just kind of like retreating to the comfort of Kaylin, who is obviously very close to him and is easy to talk to, and there's no discomfort there, but something needs to push him out of this comfort zone because he's really going to be in trouble next week if that doesn't happen. Although again, all of this is potentially completely irrelevant depending on how this twist plays out.
And sometimes I think if you get nominated, like I felt like Kiki kind of needed a kick in the pants to start her game going. She was put on the block. She got fired up. Now she's coming off the block, and I feel a lot better about her going forward. So maybe that's what Eddie needs when he eventually does get nominated, to just kind of re-energize himself and get back into the game.
Yes. So we then are going to get Anthony and Mark. This is going to kind of be the start of like, whoa, Anthony.
Yeah.
Anthony! He's kind of gone back onto the we need to get Sam out train. I don't know what prompted this. He talked about how Sam was like trying to cuddle him in bed, and I don't know if that's what prompted this, or if it was that Adam was talking too much about how much he thinks that Sam is good, or whatever it is. Anthony's kind of back on the we need to get Sam out train, and his initial plan here as he talks to Mark is that he wants to have Chelsea be the one to take Sam out. He has a dastardly plan to convince Chelsea to target Sam, which Right.
I mean, I thought he was talking about this week, and that's what I was going with the assumption for a while. And somebody pointed out to me on Twitter that Sam has the veto this week, so I didn't know if he was talking about right now, like instead of Mama K, we would just get Chelsea to find a way to put Sam up. I don't know. Either way, this entire conversation about let's get Chelsea against Sam, let's get Adam against Sam is not ever going to happen. And I really wish these guys were smart enough to see that even if they want to get Sam out, to stop bringing it up to Adam, because they're not getting anywhere.
Yeah, Rob in the chat says he's watching with his son Anthony, and he likes the Anthony talk.
Hey, Anthony. Just keep bringing that up.
Yeah. So Anthony is also going to talk about getting Chelsea to target Kira, and kind of using Kira as the wedge to divide Chelsea and Sam. This sounds really bad, and it probably would be if he ever attempted it. But it's the kind of thing where, like, I talked yesterday about how, like, I feel like Anthony is this kind of player that like a Derek, except without the game knowledge. And I feel like this is exactly like that, right? Where he now all of a sudden has the a similar level of control over the house that Derek might have in the very early days, where he's starting to realize, wow, I can basically just tell people what to do and they do it. But instead of being tempered by game knowledge and knowing what to do with that power, he's kind of gone mad with it. And he's kind of like, I can do anything I want. I can get Chelsea to turn on Sam. I can make it happen. And, sometimes we make fun of plans like this, and because of their audaciousness, because they don't even know that they shouldn't be doing this, and then it kind of ends up working out. Think about, like, Scotty is my best friend. Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes these things do work out, but I don't think that this will work out, and I don't think that Anthony should be trying it. Honestly, I don't think he will try it. I think that he's probably savvy enough to realize, like, hey, if I'm not seeing Chelsea be receptive to this, I'm going to back off. He also has a sort of other plan that he's going to do with Corey that we'll talk about in just a second, that I think is much more likely to happen and for him to push through. That being said, hearing this, I think, is a prime example of Anthony's sort of lack of game knowledge and like the sort of thing that would definitely bring him down if left unchecked. And Nikki says, I'm pro Anthony for HOH because I think Anthony winning HOH would ruin his game entirely.
Yeah, and he doesn't want it. He has said to a couple people yesterday that he does not plan on winning. It would be bad for his game. So at least he's aware of that. If you did an Anthony like end of season podcast, if he ends up in the final three and we're talking about him in a couple months from now, you could do an entire hour or two just based on the day he had yesterday, because there was just so much going on. I don't know. I don't know how long this is going to last. Like I said earlier, when I, had this preseason feeling like Anthony was going to be a good player, I just thought he was going to have a good social game, and I thought that would carry him far. I did not think that it was going to be this I feel like I can mastermind the entire house kind of thing that he's caught on to. He feels like he can give everybody advice. He feels like he could just run the game from right now, write it all on a notepad, give out each player what they're going to do for the rest of the game, and that's it, we're done. So I don't know what exactly his plans are here, because he's telling everybody so many different things. I understand why he wants to target Sam, because it makes a lot more sense for him than it does for Dane. I think because I feel like Anthony feels like he can easily control his group of the pretty boys if he has full control over all four of them. I don't think he sees as much of Dane being close to the twins yet. I think over time he will, but I think he's very clearly seen that when he talks to Adam, he can tell that Adam has been talking to Sam, and that a lot of the ideas in Adam's head are just maybe not coming from Sam, like Sam's a mastermind, but the two of them talk a lot. So that's where Adam gets all of his game plans or whatever. And Anthony needs Sam, I guess, gone so that he can have full control over Adam's brain. Adam's obviously been winning competitions, so it's somebody that, he can use as not only a shield, but somebody to just win things and direct the game in the direction he wants it to go in. But either way, it's a lot going on really fast. And as we'll see later in the day, we thought that not everybody was catching on. It might not be the case that not everybody's catching on to what's going on here.
Yeah, I think in many ways, you were sort of high on Anthony preseason. Myself and a lot of other people were very down on Anthony preseason. I think in many ways we were both right and both wrong. We're like, you were right about his social game, and we were right as sort of about like how kind of arrogant he might be and how sort of like tone deaf he might be in certain situations. Like I feel like the Anthony that I saw preseason is the guy that started to come out yesterday. So I feel like he is a kind of combination of, he is very good socially, he has a lot of smarts to him, but there's just another part of him that I think is just, for as much as he talks about staying humble, he's just a little too full of himself and a little too high on his own supply. And he really just, he likes to hear himself talk, and he really wants to just like play these people like puppets. And maybe that's fun, but it's not necessarily the optimal strategy in Big Brother.
And I thought it was going so well yesterday. The point where I turned a little bit and said, ooh, maybe this isn't great, is because I thought that the connection he had been making with Chelsea was rock solid. I thought that he was putting a lot of trust in her, getting a lot of information out of her, but also just working well together. They were going back and forth. They're probably the two smartest players in the house at the moment. And they working together, that was going well for them. But the fact that he took all of the conversations he's had with Chelsea, and kind of was just telling Dane all about how he gets information from Chelsea, and he can like to try to manipulate a little bit of what she's thinking, what she's doing, or whatever. I was like, wait a second, if you're gonna start doing well with certain people, but then telling everybody else about how you're doing well with all these other players in the game, that defeats the point. Like you're supposed to have these conversations behind closed doors with everybody, have them feeling good about you, and then then you're safe no matter who wins. But when you start telling people this and that, the next, if you and Dane ever become at odds, Dane can easily run to Chelsea and say, a few weeks ago, this is what Anthony told me about you. So it's a lot messier than I expected it to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and like he has a conversation with Kira that's going to set Kira's alarms off a little bit, where Kira talks about like, hey, are you manipulating me? And it reminded me of the conversation between Anthony and Aika, where Aika was like, are you flirting with me? Like, is this The Bachelor? Like, what's happening? And he just kind of like smirked at her like, wouldn't you like to know? And like that's sort of Anthony's like weakness, I think, where he likes doing that to people. He likes giving them some uncertainty. He likes being like, hey, maybe I am manipulating you. Maybe I am that good. And it's just like, oh, just like chill. Like he knows that he needs to be giving a certain perception. He talks about it all the time, but he can't help but want to give a perception of like, I'm a really cool guy. I'm really smart. Like he can't help it. And so I think that's really going to be the main issue here. All of that said, I still think that he is in the best position in the house, honestly, by far. And we'll talk about some of the things that might be detrimental to his game, as you mentioned, that people might start to be a little bit onto him. But honestly, I think that those things tend to be overblown, and I'm not super concerned about them on the whole. I see a lot of weaknesses. I see a lot of potential for downfall, but I do still feel like Anthony is currently in the best spot. But again, we'll see how far that lasts.
Yeah, I think
the twist.
It's just that we're 15 days in, or 16 days in, or I don't know, maybe it's 16. Day 17. Yeah, yesterday's day 16. I think he's just acknowledged the fact he's realized that he is probably the best player in this house. He's realized that he's probably in the best spot in this house, and I think he's just riding like an adrenaline high of that kind of realization, that he's just like, wow, I did not expect to be in this spot. I did not expect to be this good. Like, look at all these players that are just wrapped around my finger, and he's just high with power. I don't know.
It was the laugh. I think the moment he realized was after he talked to Adam the other day, and he did the maniacal laugh in the have not room. That's when he realized, oh my God, I'm running this show, and something will need to happen to humble him in order, without destroying him, in order for him to, I think, really move forward in a good way. But we'll see how this moves ahead.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if any of the people not like the non-pretty boys, not Sam or Chelsea, win HOH next week, if it's like one of the twins or Eddie or Damien, I feel like he will kind of have to bring himself back down, because he has relationships with pretty much all of them. As you know, they're kind of small, but they're bigger than like Sam or Chelsea have with them. And I feel like he'll have to bring himself back down to just kind of reset the game and make sure he has an in with them, but also like not the out front biggest player on that side where everybody can see that. So
yeah,
that would probably be best for his game if his ally does not win next week, which is kind of weird.
Yeah. I honestly, like, we'll talk maybe a little bit more about the twist, but one of my biggest concerns about the twists, beyond everything, is that I really want to see how Anthony's game plays out. And if the twist involves something along the lines of blowing Anthony's game up for him, then like we'll never get to see where this would have gone. Like, would it have blown up? Like, cause his game relies so much on, not being exposed. So I don't know. It's I don't want to harp on it too much. I'm sure we're gonna get into it a lot on the roundtable tonight. Yeah. But I want to see. I'm so interested in this Anthony thing. Anyway. Kiki is going to talk with Sam and Chelsea, and again they're gonna go over the deal. Veto being used, don't come after us, blah, blah, blah. Kiki promises she won't go after them. And they want to know from Kiki, okay, so who are your targets? And Kiki's like, I don't know. Like, Kaylin. Yeah, but we're that's what we're talking about, Kaylin. Like who else? I don't know. I haven't really thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, what is she really gonna say at this point? It's not like I guess she wasn't thinking fast enough to say like an Eddie or Damien, which is probably the answer that Chelsea and Sam would have wanted to hear, but she wasn't ready to.
Yeah, Dane did not prep her for this
No.
answer.
So she was just kind of like, definitely Kaylin. I don't feel good. I think she might have been throwing my name around a little bit, but I guess like as much as I said that I feel a bit better about Kira, I still don't feel like great about her. I think she definitely could use improvement in terms of like just knowing what to say to the right person. So
yeah. I mean, I still feel like that she is probably in danger in the coming weeks still. That said, I think that honestly the best thing for Kiki's game is if Esty and Dane become visibly closer and closer, as they seem like they might be, because then they will seem like a pair and Kiki will be less threatening. But for right now, she is still a bit on people's radar. Still could be, I think, one of the people. I think right now the targets for next week, most likely targets Sam probably first, then Eddie, and then I could definitely see Kiki going up there as well. So Chelsea comes away from this thing like, okay, I didn't feel great about that, but we're still gonna move through the plan. I feel like maybe Kiki would go after Kira. Maybe that's why she was being so sketchy, is because she didn't want to say that she was going after Kira. That would be great if that'd be fine. And so they're kind of just trying to be hopeful. They still buying enough of what Dane sold them to feel okay about making this move. They still really want Kaylin gone. Esty and Kiki are going to talk afterward again of like, we're not really going to stick to the deal. Or, we could go after Mark. We didn't promise Mark safety. Them thinking that like taking Mark out would be a blow to that group, not realizing that group also wants to target Mark. And so they would also love, but what they would really love, their ideal situation is if Damien won HOH and he took a shot at Sam for them.
Yes, I mean it makes sense. Damien's obviously on their side. If Damien won the next HOH, then all three of the twins and Dane are still eligible to compete the next week. Plus, obviously the twins and Dane won't have to take a direct shot if they were like to backdoor Sam or something like that to get a number out that they want to get out, but can't now because of the deal. It's tricky for them because they had Chelsea put Kiki on the block this week, but Kiki has said multiple times, I know you put me up, but I'm not going to come after you. Like, I don't hold any resentment. I'm not bitter about it. It's fine. Now Sam won the veto, and Sam is like the big backdoor target, especially of Dane. And what are they going to do? Backdoor Sam the very next week after Sam directly takes Kiki off the block? Like, it's probably not the most ideal situation for the backdoor Sam contingent in the house, but I don't know. I think if they want to play it safe next week, they can go after Akira or a Mark. Probably Kira is the better pick to take out because Kira is in with Sam and Chelsea, but I don't know. I know it's not exactly what they want to do.
Mm-hmm. So Anthony is going to talk with Corey, and this is kind of what I talked about as his maybe backup plan or side plan or also plan to take out Sam. And he really pushes this one. This is potentially dangerous here. It's successful in the moment, but it's one of those things that he has put out there, and it's basically a lie. And this could really damage his game if it gets out to the wrong person. So very interested to see how this one plays out. He basically tells Corey, hey, you're doing really well. Nobody's really coming after you, except for Sam. Sam's kind of coming after you. You maybe need to worry about that. And Corey's like, oh, Sam is coming after me? Oh, yeah, I mean, I've heard some things. And, I mean, if I were you, I'd probably want to take a shot at Sam because she's probably one of the only people coming after you, maybe. And Corey's like, oh, wow, but okay, so how do we get Sam out? And he's like, well, thinking about it, she's been controlling the votes for the first few weeks. She's really in charge of the house. I mean, just talk about that. And she's like, yeah, and if we take Sam out, then Adam is like up for grabs. And he's like, yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying. And so this conversation goes exactly how Anthony wants it to, but it's one of those things that's like, now Corey is under the assumption that Sam is coming after her, which is not true, which is like very, very not true. I think Sam is like totally cool with Corey. And if this gets out that Anthony told Corey this, then like Anthony is like big time exposed.
And I don't know why he's taking. I know he's like planting seeds all around the house to try to get people feeling bad about Sam, like including obviously many talks with Adam about you need to be careful with Sam, blah 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 blah. But he doesn't know Corey as well as he knows everybody else that's been in the house since the beginning. He's talked to Corey here and there. Everybody kind of has had their little bits of conversations with Corey where they try to fill her in a little bit with this is happening, that's happening, but nobody is really outright, I guess, gone to Corey with like specific names and specific targets, I would say. And I mean, this is a big one. This is a big here, Corey, here's somebody that you should go after directly. And say Corey does happen to win HOH next week, does make Sam her target. Corey is going to eventually at some point, it's going to come out that, well, I heard you were coming after me. Sam, who'd you hear that from? I never said that. Anthony told me this last week. And then bam, it's all over. All it takes is one HOH win.
Yeah, and again, we'll talk about the Chelsea and Kira conversation and how it relates to Anthony, but because a lot of people were looking at that conversation and saying, "Uh-oh, here it is. This is bad for Anthony." I think this conversation with Corey is way worse in terms of Anthony's longevity in the game than the Chelsea and Kira conversation that we'll talk about in just a little bit. So Sam and Kira are going to talk more about Kiki. Sam, weirdly, having some good, not weirdly, I guess, because it was kind of obvious, but having some good instincts here regarding Kiki. She's kind of like, I feel like we're being lied to, maybe. I don't really trust Kiki. She's not naming any targets. I don't know. I just feel like they're going to come for us. I don't feel great about this. Kira is kind of saying, I feel like she'll probably stick to her word. And Sam was like, she wouldn't even name any targets, though. Like, what's up with that? So Sam, not feeling super great, still will likely use the veto today, but sort of being the one in this group who is seeing this coming the most, that these people are not being straight up with him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Kiki is not the greatest, in terms of convincing somebody that what they're saying is what they actually mean. So, I mean, I don't think it would take like a rocket scientist in the house to figure this out, which, kind of makes sense why Sam is very easily picking up on it. I'm not saying Sam's like a bad player again, but just it shouldn't be too hard to figure out that Kiki didn't exactly mean what she was saying here.
Yes. And again, very unlikely that this changes any kind of outcome, especially since the feeds have been down potentially for the veto ceremony right now. But when I saw this happen, I was like, I do think there's a chance that if Sam is feeling skittish enough about this, that she doesn't use the veto. There are conversations that are had that end up with her not using the veto. But like I said, very, very unlikely at this point. There's not enough time. I think if there was more time, it could totally be something that was possible. But I think the veto is definitely being used at this point.
I thought the feeds just went down when you were doing updates. Like when the episodes are on, they just shut the feeds to make sure everybody watches the updates. Is that
yeah?
Not the case?
I mean, I did make a deal with Trevor Boris about that.
Right.
So.
That's what I thought was going on Twitter. So.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is currently for the veto. I think they might be doing the whole like this is why you were on slop thing because we didn't mention I guess at this point, but they were on slop all day yesterday. The fridge was locked and they were all cold showers and slop, and they still haven't mentioned knowing why. They think they were just getting in trouble for bad behavior or whatever. So I think that could be what this is.
My theory about that was my theory is they did the veto competition. They kept talking about cheating and how this like, oh, Kira cheated. She cheated. I think my theory is that that's why the feeds were down for longer because they were trying to be like, hey, stop talking about cheating. We don't want talk of cheat on our feeds. So we're going to keep them cut until you stop talking about cheating. And they kept talking about cheating. And then I feel like they were punished because they kept talking about cheating. And then Trevor Boris had to come on Twitter and be like, there was no cheating. Don't think we were cheating or anybody was cheating. Maybe they'll come up with some other reason, but that's my theory.
I wish I remembered who tweeted it, but somebody was talking about they just need a segment for an upcoming episode, which is very likely a Big Brother Canada thing. Just we need a segment for the show, and here let's just put them all on slot for 24 hours and get some groggy house guests in the DR complaining and lots of talk. This house is gross. I don't know if I've just not noticed it every past year, but very disgusting, talking about all the times they go to the bathroom and just it's a lot. I don't know if it's just this group, but it's been bad.
Yeah, because Big Brother Canada, they need more filler segments. That's definitely what everybody says, is that we need more filler segments from Big Brother Canada.
Yeah.
So Anthony and Adam are going to talk, and Anthony is going to talk to Adam again about how Sam needs to go, and Adam's like, yeah, sure, soon-ish. Later, maybe. It's just a kind of weird conversation. I don't know why Anthony is so fixated on Sam at the moment. I think that if Anthony was looking at the board properly, he'd understand that he doesn't want this, that he wants the Sam Chelsea war to happen between with Esty and Kiki, and that's great. Those two kind of groups going after each other. He doesn't need a third party like Corey to come in and snipe Sam off the board, because then that war becomes a little too lopsided. So I'm not sure what he's thinking, but again, like. I'm not. I think that hopefully he has enough game sense to sort of realize what's happening later on. But again, we'll see. I'm very interested.
And if he was thinking like long term, which obviously he's not right now, he's just kind of in a spot where he just wants the full power. But like, is Sam somebody you really see like going to the end, winning a jury vote? Like, I don't know. So maybe if he was thinking in terms of that, but he's not.
Yeah. He also talks about how Mark is becoming a target and they need to protect him. They need to make sure other people are out in front of him. People like Eddie, Damien, and Kira as good targets in front of Mark. They are sort of the people to throw in front of Mark, in front of the Mark bus. But Sam is, I think, his primary concern. And I think if anything, I think that what he sees is that Sam is the easiest person to create a target on, and that maybe the primary reason for him wanting Sam to be targeted like this is so that he can protect Mark. That maybe they could use Eddie, maybe they could use Kira, but really the easiest person to throw in front of Mark is Sam. So that might be the reasoning there.
Yes, got to protect Mark at all costs, and I guess it makes sense. They got to keep the Pretty Boys intact. Like I said, I think Anthony wants to ride with the Pretty Boys as far as he can, because he does feel like he has control over all three of them. So it makes sense that he wants to keep Mark out of people's mouths.
Yes,
Mark's name out of people's mouths.
So, Chelsea and Kira are going to have a conversation later in the night, close to when the episode aired, about, first of all, Adam and how he's dumb and too trusting. They're annoyed that he told Dane about the backdoor plan. They feel like Chelsea should have been the one to tell Dane about that. They talk about wanting Mark out next, that he is sort of their next target as of right now. Again, it's sketchy that Adam even trusts Mark at all. It's weird. But most importantly here, Kira says that they were a little bit sketched out by Anthony. That they were having a conversation with Anthony, and he was kind of inferring that that they should be wary of Adam, but they've also seen him talk with Adam one-on-one, and they thought that he was kind of close with Adam, and they just felt a little bit manipulated in that conversation. They even asked him, like, are you playing me? And they didn't really get they didn't get a great vibe from the whole thing, and they were just a little bit sketched out by this. And Chelsea was like, yeah, it's weird that you say that. Like, I feel like I've sort of had similar interactions with it. I feel good about Anthony, but you're making me wonder, does everybody feel that way about Anthony? Is that something that we need to be concerned about? They're a little bit sketched out here.
Yeah, throughout the day, Anthony's conversations, all the one-on-ones that he had, they were in various parts of the house, but it was like a lot of the spots were places that he's easily seen. He was in the HOH room with Chelsea for a little while. We know that Kira is going over to the HOH room while Chelsea's in power. You open the door, you see the two of them talking, you walk out, and that's it. Later on, we see Anthony is with Corey, and they're talking by the fish tank, obviously in plain sight. The two of them are talking. And then I think later what kind of clicked it in for Kira is when they opened up the door to the have not room, and Anthony was in there with, I think, Adam at the time. And it's just like, when you're walking around the house all day, it's a Sunday, it's an off day, you don't really have a lot to do. If you're able to just be perceptive of what's going on around you, and you see Anthony talking with every single person, and you walk into the room and it's like a hushed tone, you can kind of read the room. It's not too hard to tell that Anthony's up to something. And especially when it's somebody like Kira, who is not like all in on being allied with Anthony. Maybe there's a small working relationship there that they feel like they can use eventually. I don't know. It's not the kind of relationship that most people have with Anthony. So obviously the bells are going off much faster when you see Anthony talking to everybody throughout the day.
Yeah, and this conversation just brought me right back to Big Brother 17 when it was Shelly up in the HOH room talking with Audrey, and Audrey was kind of a pariah in the house, didn't have much credibility, but had the right read. The only person in the house that had the right read on Vanessa, who was, this dangerous player in the house at the time, and nobody thought Vanessa could ever continue with what she was doing, especially because so many people were onto her, and Audrey had Shelly completely flipped on Vanessa for like days, and Vanessa even had a plan to turn Shelly on Audrey in a similar way that Anthony wants to turn Chelsea against Kira. And it just like I feel like it's such a similar situation where Kira is sort of a pariah in the house, has very little credibility, and for as much as this conversation seems damning to Anthony, they did still talk about wanting to work with him and talking about like how they're a little bit sketched out, but they really just want to talk to him some more and get a better handle on what's happening here. But really, it's so striking in its similarity that I was like very, very interested, and I'm hoping here that Kira is able to have more. I would love to see like a Kira Anthony rivalry, where Kira has the right read on Anthony, and his game is so exposed that somebody with the right read on him could tank everything, but they have such low credibility in the house that like what they say about him is kind of like I'm not sure. I just feel like it's an interesting rivalry here.
Yeah, and the person who would feel the best about this all is the guy at home, Mackie, if he's watching and sees who Anthony, who saved Kira last week pretty much by flipping the house back and forth and ultimately landing on Kira. If Kira is the demise of Anthony's great work that he's done thus far, if Kira is the one who's able to tell everybody when the time comes and blow everything up.
Yeah, but like I said, ultimately, I think the person that really has, Anthony's game in their hands is Corey at the moment. She just doesn't realize it yet. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, that's exactly. Corey doesn't have like the malicious intent that Kira might have in terms of like Kira knows this is something that I can use if I need to use it. Corey's just kind of taking in any information that she can get at the moment. So there's a little bit of a difference there.
Yes, and obviously we should talk a little bit about this twist. In the episode last night, we were told that the audience is going to vote for one player to go into the blood veto room. I'm not going to call it what they want me to call it, and they're going to see exclusive top level video intel on the other house guests. I don't know what this means. I'm trying to be as fair as possible before I condemn it. I don't know what it will be yet. I think there are some really, really bad possibilities, but I'm going to hold off on railing against them until they actually happen. So for now, I will say that at the very least, it has immense potential to entirely change everything that we just talked about, and just completely rework the house into sort of, something entirely different.
I think maybe like the best case scenario for this would be that whoever wins gets to go in there and maybe just like watch the live feeds for like an hour or something and just like what's going on that day, and just and kind of just like HOH camera in Big Brother US, where you just have a few cameras to watch what's going on like at the moment and people don't realize that you're in there. Obviously worst case scenario would be like actual footage of people having game conversations, and I feel like I want to put faith in them that they would not put like a conversation of Anthony talking to Chelsea and them talking about their games in there, because that would just be completely insane. I don't think they would do that, but I don't know.
Anything edited, this is what I'm trying to avoid railing against quite yet, but anything edited I just feel like is so far over the line in terms of production manipulation. So I'm desperately hoping there's no edited footage in this package, but
could also just be maybe something like, here's some footage from the previous week, like here's some stuff from like the week of Mackie's eviction for you to look at, because this is in the past now, and it's like here's some information that you can get from things that aren't as relevant now. I don't know.
I do wonder, and I think that this would be maybe like not the worst thing in the world if it would be more preseason stuff, like they had the secrets, maybe like just some more information on, what, like, I don't know, actual age, actual occupation, whatever. That I would be, again, that's edited, and I don't like that, but it would be better than like edited game footage, and probably better than just like straight, watching people in the house. But probably best case is just like an hour of muted feeds or whatever. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
And I think I saw a large contingent of people voting for Kiki. I think Kiki deserves it probably the most after the way that that secrets package went, and Kiki had the secret about I don't want them to know how great of a liar I am. I feel like Kiki needs like a little bit of a leg up after they did that to her. So I'm not voting. I will not vote for anything after the whole BB Ken 6 vote in. So I'm retired on Big Brother voting, or at least Canada. But I don't know. I would not mind if Kiki was the one who won that.
Well, my personal advice for anyone voting, I also will not vote. My personal advice is don't vote. Just encourages them. But if you are going to vote for sure, no matter what anyway, my personal advice would be don't vote for a player you want to do well in the game, because I think this information will hurt them. I think that you should vote for a player that will use this information to benefit the player you like, because the person that goes in there, if they find out about the Pretty Boys or whatever it is, they're going to come out probably guns blazing, exposing things, being at the forefront of the charge to like, let's do whatever. And that's going to be really bad for whoever's game it is. So what you want is somebody that you don't particularly care for, but will expose all of the things, and that will indirectly benefit the person that you like. So that would be my advice, but my real advice is don't even vote at all.
Yeah, and as we saw last year, not just with the vote in, with the Canada saves in the middle of the season, we have no say as a group of people here on this this little planet of ours. We don't have much say.
Yeah, ultimately it will be the TV viewers that choose. So, yeah, my guess would be that it's going to go to either Kaylin, Damien, or Kiki, because those are the three people that are either on the block or being targeted at the moment.
I mean, people with good edits. Obviously, you have Eddie.
Eddie, I do think is a possibility. Yeah,
and I felt like they were trying to, maybe not trying to give Dane the power, but like the little segment at the it was like we got the information about the vote, and then the next segment was like Dane being like funny and pulling a prank. James Big Brother 17 style. When he crawled into the thing in the archive room and he was like taking a nap and then scared Kiki. I was like, oh, please don't tell me this is like gonna kick anybody's votes into his direction. But
wow, I would be surprised if Dane got it, but I've been
Dane's
surprised.
Gotta be popular.
It's totally possible, especially after his thing last week with like the HOH room reveal was very emotional. But I feel like, I don't know, I would guess not, but again, this Big Brother Canada casual audience has really put us through the ringer before, so don't be surprised by anything.
Yep.
All right, that's what we've got for you. I will be back with the other members of the LFC tonight for the roundtable, the second roundtable of the season. We will update the stock watch, let you guys know what our decisions were last week for buying and selling, see if anybody made any mistakes or if anybody made some good purchases. We'll see what happens there. I will be releasing the form for the roundtable tonight as soon after this podcast ends. On Twitter, you can find me at Armstrong Taryn. I will be including in that form a poll for who you are voting for to receive this this twist power thing, whatever. So if you are interested in that, then you can vote on the form as you rate the players, and there are of course other cool bonus questions that you can answer within that, including how for or against you are of this twist in general. Looking for a 1 on this one. Fully against. I want everyone against. So that's what we've got for you. Make sure you check that out on Twitter, and you can follow Matt at Matt Lagori.
Yep.
Anything else that you wanted to bring up?
No, I think we covered it for the most part. Should be maybe, I don't know if it's going to be a super fun week with an obvious target, but I think going forward we're still set up for some exciting days.
All right. Well, like I said, tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern, for the roundtable. Make sure you tune in. It's going to be fun. And then Thursday night, we'll be back, of course, to recap the eviction episode of Big Brother Canada 7. And, of course, tomorrow morning, I'll be here at 11 a.m. Eastern to update you on everything that happens today on the Big Brother Canada live feeds. So, thank you for joining us. See you next time.